The mining ship Perseverance drifted through the asteroid belt like a metal insect searching for treasure. Captain Sarah Chan watched the scanner displays with tired eyes. 3 months of scanning dead rocks had yielded nothing but frustration and mounting debt. The corporate bosses back on Earth expected results, but space rarely cared about human schedules. "Another empty one," called out Marcus from the sensor station. The young geologist had joined their crew fresh from university, full of hope and theories about mineral distribution. Now his voice carried the same weary tone that infected everyone on long-haul mining runs. Sarah rubbed her temples. The Perseverance carried enough supplies for another 2 weeks, but fuel costs were already eating into any potential profits. Corporate mining was a gamble where the house always seemed to win. "Wait," Marcus straightened in his chair. "I'm picking up something unusual. This asteroid, it's big. Really big. And the mineral composition is unlike anything in our databases." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a massive irregular shape tumbling slowly through space. Where most asteroids appeared as rough, crater-scarred rocks, this one seemed almost smooth in places. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, too regular to be natural formations. "How big are we talking?" Sarah leaned forward. "Roughly 12 kilometers at its widest point." "But, Captain, those aren't natural rock formations. The metal content is off the charts, and I'm detecting internal structures. This thing is hollow in places." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Hollow asteroids were rare, but they sometimes contained the most valuable mineral deposits. The geometric patterns worried her though. In 30 years of space mining, she had learned to trust her instincts, and something about this rock felt different. "Take us in for a closer look. But keep the engines warm." The Perseverance adjusted course, its ion drives humming softly. As they approached, the asteroid's true nature became clear. What they had taken for natural patterns were actually carved symbols, worn smooth by eons of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. The markings covered every visible surface in intricate spirals and angular designs. "This isn't an asteroid," whispered Elena, their communications officer. "It's artificial. Someone built this thing." The implications hit the crew like a physical blow. Humanity had been exploring space for over 2 centuries, but they had never found evidence of other intelligent life. Politicians and scientists debated the Great Silence endlessly, but miners dealt with reality. They were alone among the stars, picking through the bones of dead worlds. "I'm detecting an atmosphere inside the hollow sections," Marcus reported. "Oxygen, nitrogen, trace gases. The readings they're similar to Earth normal." Sarah made the decision that would change everything. "Prep the shuttle. We're going aboard." The docking bay of the mysterious structure opened to receive them, ancient mechanisms responding to their approach with disturbing precision. Emergency lighting flickered on as their shuttle settled onto a landing platform clearly designed for visiting spacecraft. The architecture was alien yet somehow familiar, as if the builders understood universal principles of engineering. Sarah, Marcus, and Elena suited up and crossed into the station proper. Their boots echoed in vast corridors lined with symbols that seemed to shift and change in their peripheral vision. The air was breathable according to their sensors, but they kept their helmets sealed. "The power systems are still active," Elena observed, watching her scanner readings. "After who knows how many thousands of years, this place is still running on some kind of energy source we can't identify." They moved deeper into the structure, following corridors that branched and merged in patterns that hurt to contemplate too closely. The builders had not thought like humans. Their architecture followed rules that made logical sense but felt subtly wrong to primate brains evolved in Earth's gravity. The first chamber they entered took their breath away. Crystalline formations hung from the ceiling like frozen lightning, each one pulsing with soft bioluminescence. The walls showed scenes of space, not viewed through windows but somehow projected directly onto the surfaces. Stars wheeled overhead in real time, showing the galaxy as it appeared from their current position. "This is a map," Marcus breathed. "A 3-dimensional star map showing current stellar positions. The computational power required to maintain this in real time." Sarah was studying the crystalline formations when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. One of the larger crystals contained a shadow, a dark mass coiled at its center. As she watched, the shadow moved slightly. "There's something alive in there." The crystal began to glow brighter, responding to their presence. cracks appeared along its surface, spreading outward from the dark mass within. The shadow uncoiled, revealing a shape that belonged in mythology rather than reality. The dragon emerged from its crystalline prison with fluid grace, wings unfurling to span the width of the chamber. Its scales shifted color like oil on water, and eyes like molten gold fixed on the three humans. When it opened its mouth, fire did not emerge. Instead, it spoke in a voice that resonated in their bones. So, the young species has finally found me. Elena stumbled backward, her hand automatically reaching for the weapon she carried. Marcus stood frozen, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Sarah, veteran of 1,000 dangerous situations, found her voice first. You're real. Dragons are real. I am Valthera, last of the cosmic shepherds. I have waited in sleep for 3 million of your years, hoping someone would come who might understand. Understand what? Sarah managed. The dragon's massive head tilted, studying them with ancient intelligence. Your species intrigues us. You spread across the galaxy with such determination, such hope. Yet you remain blind to the dangers that approach. What dangers? Instead of answering, Valthera moved to the center of the chamber. The star map responded to her presence, zooming in on specific regions of space. Red markers appeared, scattered across the galaxy like drops of blood. The Devourers stir in the void between galaxies. They have consumed 17 different civilizations in the past million years, stripping entire star systems of life and leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. Sarah felt the universe grow larger and more terrifying around her. Why are you telling us this? Because your species possesses something unique. Something we thought might be the key to stopping them, but we could never be certain. We shepherds guided younger races for eons, but we always remained apart, always watching from a distance. We never learned to truly communicate. The dragon's golden eyes focused on Sarah with intensity that made her feel transparent. Tell me, human. When you first saw this place, what did you feel? Sarah considered the question seriously. Wonder. Fear. Curiosity about who built it and why they left it empty. Not empty. Guarded. This station has been my prison and my post for 3 million years. I volunteered to stay behind when my people retreated to the void, hoping that someday a species would emerge that could succeed where we failed. What made you think humans might be different? Valthera's massive form settled onto the floor, wings folding against her sides. We observed your species for centuries before you achieved spaceflight. What fascinated us was not your technology, but your capacity for empathy. You form bonds not just with your own kind, but with other species. You domesticate animals not as slaves, but as companions. You tell stories about friendship across species barriers. She gestured with a clawed hand toward the star map. Every other spacefaring race we encountered followed the same pattern. They advanced through conquest, expanding their territory and resources while viewing other species as obstacles or resources. But humans befriend their exploration partners. You bring pets on starships. You name your vessels and speak to them as if they were alive. Marcus found his voice. You're talking about emotional intelligence. Interspecies communication. More than that. You have the capacity to see beyond your own perspective, to understand that intelligence can take forms radically different from your own. The Devourers cannot be fought with weapons or technology. They are a psychic plague that consumes not just life, but the very concept of life. They turn civilizations against themselves. Sarah felt pieces clicking together in her mind. But they can't affect a species that truly understands cooperation across biological barriers. Perhaps. We were never certain, because we shepherds never learned that skill ourselves. We guided, we protected, we observed, but we never truly connected. We remained aloof in our wisdom, and that isolation became our weakness. The chamber around them began to change, walls shifting to show images of vast space battles, entire star systems going dark, civilizations turning on themselves in madness and despair. The scale of destruction was beyond human comprehension. The Devourers are already moving toward this galaxy. My long-range sensors detect their vanguard scouts probing the outer rim. You have perhaps 50 of your years before they arrive in force. Elena stepped forward, her scientific training overcoming her fear. What do you need from us? Partnership. The shepherds left behind weapons and technology that could turn the tide, but they require more than one mind to operate. They were designed for collective consciousness, something my people achieved through mental linking. Humans lack that ability, but you have something potentially better. Which is trust. The willingness to work with beings completely unlike yourselves. To treat them as equals rather than subjects or tools. Sarah looked at her crew, seeing the same mixture of terror and determination in their faces that she felt in her chest. They were miners, not heroes. They had stumbled into something beyond their comprehension. If we agree to help you, she said carefully, what exactly would we be signing up for? Valthera's massive head lowered until she was at eye level with the three humans. A war for the survival of all thinking beings in the galaxy. The transformation of your species from explorers to guardians. The acceptance of responsibilities that will change humanity forever. And, if we refuse? Then, in 50 years, the Devourers will arrive to find a galaxy already consumed by its own fears. They will feed on the psychic energy of civilizations destroying themselves, growing stronger until nothing remains but empty space and silence. The weight of decision pressed down on them like the gravity of a massive planet. Sarah thought about Earth, about the billions of humans spreading across the stars in mining ships and colony vessels. They were naive and hopeful, believing the universe was empty but safe. We need time to think, she said. To contact our people and explain what we've found. Of course. But, know this, the choice cannot be postponed indefinitely. The Devourer's influence already extends into this galaxy. Strange behaviors are beginning to manifest among the various species. Increased aggression, paranoia, isolation. The infection spreads slowly at first, then accelerates. Valthera gestured toward a section of the chamber wall, which became transparent to reveal a docking bay containing ships of impossible design. These vessels can travel faster than light without the limitations of your current technology. They were built for shepherds, but they can be adapted for human use. You're offering us advanced technology? I am offering you the tools your species will need to become what the galaxy requires, not conquerors, but protectors. Not rulers, but friends to all thinking beings. The dragon's golden eyes held depths of sorrow and hope that Sarah could barely comprehend. I have been alone for 3 million years, waiting for someone who might understand. Not someone to command or manipulate, but someone to work beside as an equal. Sarah realized that this moment would define not just their own lives, but the entire future of humanity. They had come searching for mineral wealth and instead found a responsibility that spanned galaxies. We'll need to return to our ship, she said. Contact Earth. This decision is too big for 3 people to make alone. I understand. But, Sarah Chun of Earth. Hearing her name spoken by the ancient being sent chills down her spine. When you speak to your people, remember this, the Devourers do not simply destroy civilizations. They corrupt them. They turn a species' greatest strengths into weapons of self-destruction. Humanity's empathy and cooperation are your shield against their influence, but only if you choose to embrace that nature rather than abandon it for easier paths. As they prepared to return to their shuttle, Marcus turned back to address the dragon directly. Why didn't your people try to fight them yourselves? Valthera's expression grew infinitely sad. Because we tried to face the Devourers alone, believing our ancient wisdom and powerful technology would be sufficient. We learned too late that some enemies can only be defeated through connections we had never learned to make. The 3 humans left the chamber carrying the weight of the galaxy's future. Behind them, the ancient dragon settled back into waiting, her golden eyes reflecting starlight and hope in equal measure. The universe was no longer empty, and humanity was no longer alone. The question now was whether they would prove worthy of the trust placed in them, or become another failed civilization in the Devourer's wake of destruction. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened in Geneva 3 days after the Perseverance transmitted its impossible report. President Martinez sat at the head of the curved table, surrounded by representatives from every major nation and colony. The holographic display in the center showed the alien station, with Captain Chen's footage providing undeniable proof that humanity was not alone. Ladies and gentlemen, Martinez began, his voice carrying the weight of history, we face a decision that will define our species for generations to come. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, Director of Xenobiological Research, leaned forward. The dragon's claims about humanity's unique empathic abilities align with our own psychological research. We've always wondered why humans domesticate other species for companionship rather than purely utilitarian purposes. Admiral Torres, representing the Colonial Defense Force, remains skeptical. We're talking about trusting a creature that's been isolated for 3 million years. How do we know this isn't some elaborate trap? Because the alternative is extinction, replied Dr. James Kowalski from the Institute for Advanced Physics. I've analyzed the energy readings from that station. The technology demonstrated exceeds our capabilities by several orders of magnitude. If they wanted to harm us, we'd already be dead. The debate raged for hours. Religious leaders spoke of humanity's role as stewards of creation. Military officials worried about the security implications. Scientists argued for the unprecedented opportunity to advance human knowledge. Politicians calculated the costs and benefits of galactic responsibility. Captain Chen, attending via hologram from the alien station, provided crucial testimony. I've spent 3 days speaking with Valthera. She's shown me historical records of the civilizations the Devourers destroyed. The pattern is always the same. Species that achieve spaceflight begin exhibiting increasing paranoia and aggression until they turn on themselves. By the time the Devourers arrive, there's nothing left to consume but the psychic echoes of self-destruction. What exactly does she want from us? Asked Representative Nakamura from the Japanese colonies. Partnership, not servitude. She's made it clear that the shepherds failed because they tried to guide other species from a position of superiority. They never learned to see other beings as true equals. Dr. Reeves activated her own presentation, showing brain scans and behavioral studies. Our research suggests Captain Chen is correct about human empathic capabilities. We've documented cases of humans forming emotional bonds with artificial intelligences, treating machines as companions rather than tools. This neuroplasticity for interspecies connection appears to be unique among known intelligent life. The turning point came when Captain Chen shared new footage from her continued exploration of the station. The recording showed vast databases of alien civilizations, their art, their music, their stories. Each entry ended the same way, with darkness and silence. 17 civilizations, Chen said quietly. Each one unique, each one beautiful in its own way. All gone because they couldn't overcome their fundamental isolation when the Devourer's influence reached them. The vote was closer than anyone expected. 147 in favor of accepting the partnership, 93 opposed, with 12 abstentions. Humanity had chosen to step into the larger universe, with all the dangers and responsibilities that entailed. The transformation began immediately. Valthera guided teams of human scientists through the alien technology, explaining principles that revolutionized their understanding of physics. The ships in the station's docking bay were indeed marvels of engineering, capable of crossing galactic distances in weeks rather than centuries. But the real work was far more difficult than anyone anticipated. The Shepard weapons cannot be operated by a single mind, Valthera explained to the growing research team. They require multiple consciousness working in perfect harmony, seeing through each other's perspectives while maintaining individual identity. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a specialist in human-computer interfaces, studied the control systems with fascination and frustration. It's like trying to play a symphony where each musician needs to feel what all the others are feeling without losing their own part. Exactly. Your species lacks the natural telepathic abilities the shepherds possessed, but perhaps that limitation can become a strength. Telepathy creates unity, but it can also create conformity. Your individual consciousness working together voluntarily might achieve something my people never could. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria Santos, a shuttle pilot with autism, found herself uniquely suited to interfacing with the alien systems. Her different neurological structure allowed her to process the multi-layered information streams without becoming overwhelmed. It's like having multiple conversations at once, she explained to the research team. Instead of trying to merge the voices, I can maintain awareness of each one separately while understanding how they connect. Building on Maria's insights, the team developed new training protocols. They borrowed techniques from meditation practices, team sports, and even musical ensembles. Slowly, painfully, groups of humans learned to operate the Shepard weapons systems. Meanwhile, disturbing reports arrived from across human space. Colonial disputes were escalating into violence. Trade negotiations that should have been routine were breaking down in suspicion and paranoia. Ships were reporting inexplicable equipment failures and crew conflicts on long-haul journeys. The corruption is beginning, Valthera observed sadly. It starts as subtle influence on emotional regulation and decision-making. Species become gradually more aggressive, more suspicious, more willing to see enemies where none exist. Dr. Reeves coordinated the response from Earth. We're seeing it in the psychological profiles. Baseline aggression markers are up 18% across all human populations. Domestic violence, workplace conflicts, political extremism all increasing in frequency and intensity. The solution required expanding the partnership beyond the research teams. Valthera worked with human psychologists to develop mental exercises that could help resist the devourer's influence. The techniques emphasized empathy, connection, and the recognition of shared humanity across all differences. Think of someone you disagree with politically, became a common exercise. Now imagine them as a child, afraid and seeking safety. Can you see the common ground beneath your differences? Schools across human space began teaching these techniques alongside traditional subjects. The corporate world, initially resistant, embraced them when studies showed dramatic improvements in team productivity and conflict resolution. But the greatest test came when humanity made first contact with other current galactic civilizations. The Korthani were an insectoid species that had achieved spaceflight 2 centuries before humans. Their society was rigidly hierarchical, with each individual fulfilling predetermined roles based on genetic caste. When human diplomats attempted to establish trade relations, the meetings devolved into confusion and mutual suspicion. They view our egalitarian structure as chaotic and inefficient, reported Ambassador Williams from the first diplomatic mission. And we find their caste system morally repugnant. It was exactly the kind of breakdown the devourer's influence was designed to create. Under normal circumstances, both species would have withdrawn, each convinced the other was fundamentally incompatible. Instead, Captain Chen volunteered for a joint mission with Valthera and a Korthani diplomatic vessel. The goal was to demonstrate the partnership techniques the shepherds and humans were developing. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a station hastily constructed using both human and Korthani technology. The architectural clash was immediate. Humans preferred curved, organic spaces while Korthani favored angular efficiency. "This is hopeless," muttered Korthani Ambassador Zektel through the translation system. "Your species lacks the genetic programming for proper social organization. And your species treats individuals like replaceable components," replied Ambassador Williams with barely contained frustration. Valthera intervened before the situation could escalate. "Both of you are correct, and both of you are missing the point." The dragon's presence commanded attention from both species. "Ambassador Zektel, your people's efficiency and specialized skills are admirable. In a crisis, your society can coordinate responses faster than any chaotic democracy." The Korthani representative's antennae twitched with pleased surprise. "Ambassador Williams, your species' adaptability and individual creativity allow for solutions that no predetermined system could anticipate. You solve problems your ancestors never imagined." Valthera moved between them, her massive form somehow comforting rather than threatening. The devourers count on exactly this reaction. They whisper that differences are threats, that understanding equals weakness. But what if your peoples could work together without either becoming like the other? The demonstration that followed changed everything. Using the partnership techniques, human and Korthani teams worked together to solve a complex engineering problem, designing a hybrid station that met both species' needs. The humans contributed creative problem-solving and adaptive thinking. The Korthani provided precise coordination and specialized expertise. Neither species compromised their core values, but they learned to see those differences as complementary rather than competing. "This is unprecedented," Zektal admitted when the project succeeded beyond all expectations. "Our efficiency models never accounted for the innovations your chaos produces. And we never realized how much time we waste reinventing solutions you've already perfected," Williams replied. Word of the successful collaboration spread throughout the galaxy. Other species, initially suspicious of both humans and dragons, began requesting similar partnerships. The aquatic deepsingers, who communicated through complex musical patterns, found common ground with human musicians and poets. The silicon-based constructors, who thought in geological timeframes, connected with human astronomers and long-term planners. Each successful partnership weakened the devourer's influence. The psychic corruption that fed on isolation and fear found no purchase in minds genuinely connected across species barriers. But Valthera warned against overconfidence. This is only the beginning. We have perhaps 40 years before the Devourers arrive in force. The connections we're building must become permanent, institutionalized parts of how our civilizations interact. The work intensified. Human explorers, now partnered with members of various alien species, spread throughout the galaxy seeking other civilizations. Each new contact was an opportunity to strengthen the growing network of cooperation. The Shepard weapon systems, finally, mastered by multi-species teams, were deployed to key strategic points throughout the galaxy. But Valthera insisted the real weapons were the connections themselves. The Devourers consumed civilizations by turning them inward, making them see threats in every difference. Our defense is to embrace those differences, to find strength in diversity rather than weakness. Dr. Reeves, now coordinating a galaxy-wide research network, marveled at the changes in human society. Crime rates are down, innovation is up, and we're solving problems faster than ever before. It turns out cooperation really is our species' superpower. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some humans resented what they saw as alien influence on human culture. Political movements arose calling for withdrawal from the galactic community, arguing that humanity was losing its identity. We're becoming something new, Valthera acknowledged during one of her regular discussions with human leaders. Not human, not Shepard, not any single species, but something greater. The question is whether you can embrace the transformation willingly, or whether fear will drive you back into isolation. The crisis came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected the first Devourer scout ships crossing into the galaxy's outer rim. The real test of everything they had built was about to begin. As alarms sounded across human and alien space, species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves working together with unprecedented coordination. The network of partnerships, forged through patience and understanding, became a web of mutual defense that spanned the entire galaxy. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, not as conquerors or traitors, but as the bridgers of gaps, the weavers of connections, the guardians of cooperation in a universe that favored isolation and fear. The ancient dragon watched with satisfaction as her 3-million-year vigil finally came to fruition. She had found worthy partners at last. The first Devourer scout ship appeared as a shadow against the stars, its hull absorbing light and hope with equal hunger. Long-range sensors throughout the galaxy detected its presence simultaneously, triggering the most coordinated response in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen, promoted from mining captain to commander of the Multi-Species Defense Force, stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity. Around her, humans worked alongside Corthani navigation specialists, Deepsinger communication officers, and constructor tactical analysts. The ship itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering, its systems designed to accommodate the different needs and capabilities of a dozen species. Target confirmed, reported Navigation Officer Zektal, her Corthani precision invaluable for tracking the scout's erratic movements. The entity is broadcasting some kind of psychic interference pattern. Our telepathic species are reporting severe discomfort. Mental shields activated, called out Communications Officer Melody of Deepwaters, her aquatic tank humming with harmonic frequencies that helped protect susceptible minds. Human crews are showing increased resistance to the influence. Chen studied the tactical display, where the Devourer scout appeared as a hungry void surrounded by the geometric beauty of the Allied fleet. 40 years of preparation had led to this moment, but nothing could have fully prepared them for the reality of facing an enemy that fed on fear itself. Valthera, what are we looking at exactly? The ancient dragon, her consciousness linked to the ship's systems through neural interface pods designed specifically for Shepard physiology, spoke directly into everyone's minds. That is not truly a ship as you understand them. It is a parasite grown large, a creature that consumes the psychic energy of intelligent life and converts it into matter and movement. The scout ship began broadcasting directly to every inhabited world in the sector. The message came not as words or images, but as pure emotional content that bypassed rational thought and struck directly at primal fears. You are alone. Your allies will betray you. Trust nothing. Prepare for war. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate. On human colonies, domestic disputes escalated into violence. Corthani hives began showing signs of caste rebellion. Deepsinger pods fell silent as individuals retreated into isolation. The corruption wave is spreading faster than our models predicted, reported Dr. Reeves from the Scientific Coordination Center. We're seeing baseline aggression markers spike to dangerous levels across all allied species. Chen felt the influence trying to work its way into her own mind. Suspicion whispered that the aliens around her were manipulating humanity, using human empathy to serve their own ends. Fear suggested that Earth was defenseless while its best defenders stood in empty space. But 40 years of partnership training held firm. Chen focused on the reality in front of her, being she had worked alongside, fought beside, and learned to trust through countless shared challenges. "Attention all crews," she broadcast. "Remember your partner bonds. Look at the beings serving beside you. Remember the connections we've built together." Throughout the fleet, the same ritual played out. Humans and aliens turned to face each other, making eye contact where possible, sharing reassuring touches or sounds or chemical signals depending on their biology. The web of trust they had woven became a shield against the Devourer's influence. "Fascinating," observed constructor-engineer Deep Foundation Stone through his mineral-based communication system. "The entity appears confused by our resistance. It is increasing broadcast power but achieving diminishing returns." Valthera's voice carried satisfaction and surprise in equal measure. The Devourers have never encountered a civilization that could maintain cohesion under their influence. They are improvising, which means we may have opportunities they haven't anticipated. The scout ship began to change, its dark hull flowing like liquid metal as it adapted to the unexpected resistance. Weapons appeared along its surface, not mechanical devices but organic growths that pulsed with malevolent energy. "It's preparing to attack," warned tactical analyst Sharpedge of Truth, a Korthani warrior caste specialist. "Energy signatures suggest antimatter-level weaponry. All ships, defensive formation Delta 7, Chen ordered. Remember, we're not trying to destroy it, we need to capture and study it." The battle that followed redefined space combat. The Devourer scout moved with predatory grace, its weapons striking not just at ship hulls but at the minds within them. Each impact carried psychic venom designed to spread terror and despair. But the Ally fleet fought back with something no Devourer had ever faced: coordinated empathy. When one ship's crew faltered under psychic attack, partner crews from other vessels reached out through the communication networks, sharing strength and certainty. Human vessel determination reporting crew disorientation, came an emergency call. Deepsinger pod harmony and chaos responding, replied their partnered ship. "We share the song of courage with our human friends." The musical communication of the Deepsingers, broadcast through quantum entanglement networks, carried emotional resonance that helped restore the human crew's equilibrium. Similar exchanges happened throughout the battle as species that had once been strangers became shields for each other's minds. The Devourer scout seemed genuinely bewildered by the fleet's cohesion. Its attacks grew more desperate and less coordinated as it struggled to understand how minds could remain connected under its influence. "It's adapting," Valthera warned. "But adaptation requires understanding, and they cannot comprehend what they have never encountered." The opening came when constructor ship Eternal Patience used its mining equipment to trap the scout in a gravity well. The Devourer entity found itself pulled toward a specially prepared containment field, its dark hull sparking as it fought against forces designed to hold rather than destroy. "Containment successful," reported Chief Engineer Martinez from the constructor vessel. "But the entity is still broadcasting psychic interference. We need to isolate it completely." The solution came from the most unexpected source. Maria Santos, the autistic pilot who had first learned to interface with Shepard technology, volunteered for a dangerous mission. Using a specially modified fighter craft equipped with both human and alien systems, she approached the trapped Devourer scout. "Maria, what are you planning?" Chen asked with concern. "The psychic interference works by overwhelming normal mental processing," Maria replied calmly. "But my brain doesn't process information normally. I might be able to get close enough to attach the isolation pods." The plan was desperate but brilliant. Maria's neurological differences that had once made social interaction difficult now became humanity's greatest weapon against an enemy that relied on manipulating standard thought patterns. She flew through the Devourer's psychic field like a swimmer moving through toxic water. Where other minds would have been poisoned by despair and paranoia, Maria's unique neural architecture allowed her to recognize the attack as information rather than emotion. The isolation pods, based on Shepard technology but modified for anti-psychic warfare, attached to the scout's hull with magnetic clamps. As they activated, the entity's broadcasted influence dimmed and, finally, ceased. Target contained, Maria reported. And I think I understand something about how they work. The captured scout was towed to a specially prepared research station, itself a marvel of multi-species cooperation. Scientists from every allied civilization worked together to study their first intact devourer specimen. What they discovered changed everything. It's not malevolent, Dr. Reeves reported to the assembled leadership. Not in the way we understand malevolence. It's hungry. Desperately, eternally hungry for something it cannot produce itself. Vaelthera studied the data with 3 million years of accumulated wisdom. The devourers consume psychic energy, but they cannot generate it. They are incomplete beings, parasites that require the thoughts and emotions of others to survive. But why the corruption effect? Asked Admiral Chen. Because cooperation and empathy create psychic energy they cannot digest. They need fear, anger, despair, negative emotions that they can process and convert into sustenance. The corruption isn't cruelty, it's preparation. They transform their prey into food they can consume. The implications were staggering. The devourers weren't conquerors or destroyers by choice, but creatures driven by an existence-threatening need. Understanding this changed the nature of the conflict entirely. Can they be reasoned with? Asked Ambassador Williams, ever the diplomat. Vaelthera's expression grew thoughtful. Perhaps. But, first, we must prove that we cannot be consumed. They have fed on fear for so long that they may not remember any other way to exist. The research continued as more devourer scouts entered the galaxy. Each encounter followed the same pattern: initial psychic attack, confusion at the fleet's resistance, increasingly desperate attempts to break their cohesion, and eventual capture. But the scouts were learning too. Each new arrival adapted faster to the Allied tactics, requiring constant innovation and cooperation to contain. They're probing our defenses, observed Sharp Edge of Truth during a tactical briefing. Each scout tests different approaches. They are preparing for something larger. Long-range sensors confirmed the worst fears. A massive devourer fleet was approaching the galaxy's edge, moving with purpose that suggested they had learned enough from their scouts to mount a coordinated assault. How many ships? Chen asked. Not ships, Vaelthera replied grimly. Entities. Perhaps 1,000 individual devourers, each one larger than anything we've encountered. And, behind them, the dragon's voice carried sorrow that spanned eons. The hunger itself. The original entity from which all others are spawned. It has consumed entire galactic clusters. The Allied forces had perhaps 6 months to prepare for the greatest battle in galactic history. But they would not be facing it alone, and they would not be fighting as isolated species protecting separate territories. They would stand together as something unprecedented in the universe's history, a truly cooperative civilization spanning multiple worlds, multiple biologies, and multiple ways of thinking. The Devourers had never faced anything like them before, because nothing like them had ever existed. We have work to do, Chen announced to the assembled fleets. If we're going to save the galaxy, we'll need every mind, every perspective, and every friendship we can forge. As the Allied forces dispersed to spread their network of cooperation to every corner of the galaxy, Vaelthera settled into meditation, preparing for challenges that would test everything she had learned about the power of connection. The universe was about to discover whether friendship could triumph over hunger, whether cooperation could overcome consumption, and whether the bonds between different minds could withstand the ultimate test of survival. The final battle for the galaxy began not with explosions or energy weapons, but with silence. The massive Devourer fleet emerged from the void between galaxies like a cancer spreading across the starfield, their dark hulls absorbing light from entire solar systems. At their center moved something that defied classification. The Hunger was less a ship than a living void, a creature so vast that moons orbited within its body. It had consumed civilizations for millions of years, growing larger and more terrible with each feeding. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Unity, now flagship of the largest Allied fleet in galactic history. Around her, representatives of 47 different species worked in harmony that would have been impossible just 50 years earlier. The bridge hummed with multiple communication frequencies, chemical signals, quantum harmonics, and empathic resonances. Final count confirmed, reported Navigator Zektal. 1,300 individual devourers, ranging from scout-size to planet killers. The central entity registers as approximately 2/3 the mass of Earth's moon. Chen felt the familiar whisper of fear trying to invade her thoughts. The scale of what they faced was beyond any reasonable hope of victory. But she had learned to recognize that whisper as enemy action rather than realistic assessment. All ships maintain partner bonds, she broadcast to the fleet. Remember, they feed on our fear and isolation. Our strength comes from connection. Throughout the Armada, crews from different worlds reached out to each other through the networks they had spent decades building. Human empathy merged with Corthani precision, Deepsinger harmony, constructor patience, and the wisdom of dozens of other species. The effect was immediate and visible. Where traditional fleets would have shown individual ship signatures on sensors, the Allied forces registered as a single, coordinated entity. Their thoughts and actions synchronized not through military discipline, but through genuine care for each other's survival. Velthara's consciousness expanded through the fleet's communication systems, her ancient mind serving as a bridge between species that might otherwise struggle to coordinate. The Devourers are confused, she reported. They sense our presence but cannot isolate individual targets. We appear to them as one massive organism. Is that good or bad? Asked Chief Engineer Martinez from his position coordinating the fleet's technical systems. Unprecedented, replied the Dragon. They have no experience with genuine multi-species cooperation. Their strategy assumes they can turn allies against each other. The Devourer fleet's first attack came as expected, not with weapons, but with psychic warfare designed to shatter the bonds holding the alliance together. Waves of manufactured emotion swept across space, carrying despair, paranoia, and racial hatred tailored to exploit the specific fears of each species. Humans received visions of alien domination and cultural extinction. Corthani experienced images of genetic contamination and caste collapse. Deepsingers were flooded with discordant noise that threatened their sanity. Constructors felt the terror of rapid change and impermanence. But the attacks failed to find purchase. 40 years of partnership training had created mental antibodies against precisely these fears. When doubt struck human crews, their Corthani partners provided certainty. When paranoia threatened Deepsinger pods, human empathy offered reassurance. Their increasing broadcast power, warned Dr. Reeves from the Scientific Coordination Center. But our resistance is actually growing stronger under attack. The phenomenon was unprecedented. Instead of being weakened by the assault, the Allied fleet was discovering new depths of cooperation. Shared adversity was activating connection pathways that peaceful cooperation had never fully explored. Commander Maria Santos, now leading a squadron of mixed-species fighters, provided crucial insight. It's like their attacks are forcing us to trust each other more completely. When my Corthani wingman covers for my blind spots while I'm processing their psychic interference, we become more effective than either of us could be alone. The Devourers began adapting their strategy. If they could not break the alliance through fear, they would attempt to consume it through direct assault. The first wave of entities swept toward the Allied fleet with weapons that had destroyed star systems. The response showcased everything the galaxy had learned about cooperation. Constructor ships used their mining equipment to create asteroid barriers. Deepsinger vessels projected harmonic fields that disrupted enemy targeting systems. Human ships provided adaptive tactics and creative problem-solving. Corthani forces delivered precise strikes at optimal moments. Most importantly, no species fought alone. Each tactical group included members of multiple civilizations, their different strengths and perspectives combining into something greater than the sum of their parts. Enemy formation Delta 7 breaking through Sector 4, reported Tactical Officer Sharp Edge of Truth. Deepsinger pod harmony of battle responding, came the immediate reply. Human squadron freedom assisting. Constructor unit mountain patience providing support. The combined response eliminated the Devourer breakthrough before it could threaten Allied command ships. Similar coordinated efforts repelled attacks throughout the battle space. But the Devourers possessed overwhelming numbers, and they were learning. Each wave adapted to Allied tactics, forcing constant innovation and adjustment. The turning point came when the hunger itself entered the battle. The ancient entity's psychic presence was so overwhelming that even the Alliance's mental defenses began to strain. It's not just attacking our minds, reported Dr. Reeves as sensor readings spiked into dangerous territory. It's trying to consume our connections themselves. The bonds between us are what it truly hungers for. Velthara's voice carried urgency. This is how they destroyed the shepherds. We tried to fight while maintaining our distance, our superiority. The hunger fed on our isolation until we had no choice but to retreat. Then, we don't maintain distance, Chen decided. All ships execute formation unity. What followed had never been attempted in the history of warfare. Instead of maintaining safe distances for individual maneuvering, the Allied fleet condensed into the tightest possible formation. Ships from different civilizations locked their hulls together, creating a single massive construct that spanned thousands of kilometers. The humans provided the central command structure. Corthani vessels formed precise geometric support frameworks. Deepsinger ships created harmonic resonance networks. Constructor units provided structural stability. Dozens of other species contributed specialized capabilities. Physical connection established, reported Chief Engineer Martinez. All ships now sharing power, life support, and communication systems. The hunger paused in its approach, clearly confused by this unprecedented formation. It had evolved to consume isolated minds and separate civilizations. The merged consciousness of the Allied fleet was unlike anything in its experience. It doesn't understand what we've become, Valthera observed with wonder. We are no longer separate species working together. We are one civilization with many perspectives. The final assault came as the hunger attempted to engulf the merged fleet in its massive form. But, the Allied ships had become something greater than the sum of their parts. Their combined consciousness touched the ancient entity's mind and discovered something unexpected. The hunger was not malevolent, it was dying. Eons of consuming fear and hatred had poisoned it, filled it with toxins it could not purge. It attacked not from cruelty but from desperate need to find something, anything, that could sustain it. It's starving, Dr. Reeves realized. All this time, it's been trying to find nourishment, but fear and hatred are like poison to it. It needs positive psychic energy to survive, but it doesn't know how to generate or request it. The moment of understanding changed everything. Instead of fighting the hunger, the Allied fleet began broadcasting the one thing they had in abundance: genuine care for other beings. Waves of empathy, compassion, and cooperative joy flooded across space. For the first time in millions of years, the hunger tasted sustenance that healed rather than harmed. The ancient entity's response was immediate. Its desperate attacks ceased as it absorbed the positive psychic energy the Alliance freely offered. The toxic darkness that had consumed galaxies began to dissipate, replaced by something resembling hope. Communication became possible as the hunger's mind cleared. Its first coherent message was simple: "What is this feeling?" "It's friendship," Admiral Chen replied through the fleet's communication system. "It's caring about someone other than yourself. I have been alone for so long." The revelation that followed rewrote galactic history. The Devourers had once been a peaceful species called the Gardeners, who tended to the psychic health of young civilizations. But a cosmic catastrophe had cut them off from positive emotional energy, forcing them to consume fear and hatred to survive. The corruption had driven them mad with hunger, turning caretakers into parasites. "We can change that," Valthera announced. "The network we've built can generate more than enough positive psychic energy to sustain them. But they must choose cooperation over consumption." The choice was not easy. The hunger and its children had existed as predators for so long that cooperation required relearning how to exist. But the alternative was eternal starvation, and the Alliance offered something they had forgotten existed: genuine nourishment. One by one, the Devourer entities ceased their attacks and allowed themselves to be integrated into the growing network of galactic cooperation. Their vast ships were transformed into mobile gardens where young civilizations could learn the arts of empathy and connection under the guidance of former predators who understood the consequences of isolation. The hunger itself became something unprecedented: a mobile world where representatives of every galactic civilization could meet and learn from each other. Its ancient consciousness, cleared of toxic desperation, became a repository of wisdom about the dangers of fear and the necessity of connection. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the transformed entity, now called the Heart of Understanding, watching his former enemies work together to plant gardens in what had once been consuming darkness. "So this is how it ends," she mused to Valthera, who had chosen to make her permanent home aboard the Heart. "Not with conquest or destruction, but with friendship." "This is how it begins," the dragon corrected gently. "The galaxy is now truly united, but the universe is vast. There are other regions, other civilizations that may face the same challenges we have overcome." Chen nodded, understanding. Humanity's role as bridge builders was not finished. If anything, it was just beginning. Then, we'd better get to work, she said. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds and aboard countless ships, beings that had once considered each other aliens now worked together as family. The networks of cooperation that had started with 3 humans and 1 ancient dragon had grown to encompass entire galactic clusters. The age of isolation was ending. The age of true civilization was about to begin. And, somewhere in the depths of space, where light from distant galaxies took millions of years to travel, other young species looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. They would not wonder long. The alliance was coming, bringing friendship to the darkest corners of the universe, proving that no being had to face existence alone. The ancient dragon's 3-million-year vigil was complete. She had found not just allies, but family. And, together, they would ensure that no species would ever again have to choose between predation and starvation. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and they would explore it all together.